Hello everyone, this is Dr. Chandrasekhar from Chemistry Division SNH. Today we are going to discuss Engineering Chemistry B syllabus, and in that one we will be seeing Unit 3, which discusses about engineering materials, and this syllabus comes under R19 regulation. Before going into the subject, we will see the syllabus whatever framed under this regulation. We will be seeing about refractories, we will be seeing lubricants, we will be seeing abrasives, as well as we will be seeing about nanomaterials. In all these four topics, we will be discussing mainly about the classification and the properties of these engineering materials, except for nanomaterials, where we will see about the synthesis of carbon nanotubes and its application in water purification. Right. So, this is the syllabus whatever framed for Engineering Chemistry B for engineering materials. Before going into the topic, we should know what is an engineering material. Engineering materials refers to a group of material which are used in the construction of man-made structures and its components. Repeating once again, engineering materials refer to a group of materials which are used in construction of man-made structures and other components associated with it, right? So, with this definition, these are some of the examples, and you can see here it is wood, and this is steel, and this is cement, gravel, and this is marble, and these are all preformed bricks. Right. So, these are some of the examples of construction materials, and all these come under engineering materials. Right. Right. And the main function of these engineering materials is to withstand the applied load, right, so that it cannot break or it cannot exhibit an excessive deflection. Okay. So, the primary function of an engineering material is to withstand the applied load without breaking and also without exhibiting excessive deflection, right. So, these are the two main purposes of using an engineering material. Okay. Engineering materials are materials which are used for construction, right, and the main purpose of that is to avoid deflection or to withstand any applied load so that the structure will be stable. Okay. Right. And engineering materials can be broadly classified into metals, ceramics, polymers and composites. Right. By metals, we define an element which is having a crystalline form and which is formed by some crystalline structures which repeats and which is formed by a compact packing parameter, right. So, those things we call it as metals, right, and they have a repeat crystalline structure, that is why they are in the solid form. And the second one is ceramics. Ceramics are non-metals, right, and mostly they are oxides or sulfide or nitride, right, and these are the materials which is most commonly used under engineering materials, and the topic what we are going to discuss in this unit also comes under this ceramic. Right. The third one is polymers. Polymers are high molecular weight organic molecules which are used in most of the plastic industry, right, and composites are nothing but combination of the above three, okay, which can be either 2 or 3, and they have a property in between the individual component, right. So, this is how the engineering materials has been classified. One is metals, second one is ceramics, third one is polymers, and fourth one is composite. We can see this in this diagram. You can see this here, where this is a metal, the metal, ceramic, polymer, and combination of all these three comes as composite. Okay, right. So this is how an engineering material has been classified. Going to the next slide. So as I said before, so the topic whatever we are going to discuss under this unit 3 comes under ceramics, and we have to know some of the properties of ceramics. I am highlighting only few properties which are prominent in a ceramic material, and we will go slowly into the other properties when you go into the individual materials, right. So ceramics are mostly amorphous or crystalline structures, right, and they are formed by a strong ionic bond, right. So the first thing is, these are all amorphous material or crystalline material which are formed by strong ionic bonds, right. Since they are forming an ionic bond, the availability of electron cloud is not there. Since they are mostly ionic bond, the electron cloud is not there. Because of this absence, the electrical conductivity and thermal conductivity are comparatively less, right. Since the electron cloud is absent over this ceramic material, the conductivity, either the electrical conductivity or thermal conductivity, is very less compared to other material. This makes this material to be used as an high thermal and electrical resistant material. Okay, so this is one of the property of ceramics, and the second one is the same related to ionic bond. Since these materials are going to have a strong ionic bond, it takes more energy to rip them apart, right. Since they are formed by ionic bond, the bond is very strong, it takes more energy to rip them apart. Because of this, the corrosion of that material will be hindered, right. So it will have high resistance to corrosion, right, understood. So the strong ionic bond resists the breaking of bonds. Because of this, the material will have an high resistance to corrosion, right. And the other property is wear resistant and high melting temperature and high stiffness, right. All these are advantages for ceramic, and if all these things are there, then the material can be used in different applications, right. So I have highlighted some of the examples, right. So glass is one example which comes under ceramic, cement is an example for ceramics, refractories, abrasives, lubricants, and clay, right. So these are some of the examples of ceramics, and today we will be seeing these three under our engineering chemistry B syllabus, right. So refractories, abrasives, and lubricants, right. Right. So first we will go with the first one, that is refractories, right. A refractory or a refractories. The term refractory has been coined from a Latin word which means refractorous, and the meaning of it is stubborn, right. Stubborn means doesn't give way to move or to bend or to change its property, right. So Latin word refractorous, which means stubborn, that means like this donkey which doesn't move even after a great effort by the man. Okay, so which doesn't want to change its property, which resist the changes, those materials are called as refractorous, and we call it as refractory. And these are some of the images of refractory materials, right. We will see some of the properties of these refractories. Refractories are ceramic materials capable of withstanding high temperatures and extreme environments, right. So these refractories are materials which are capable of withstanding very high temperatures and extreme environmental conditions, right. And these materials are also used as insulators, right? They are also used as insulators, where it acts as a shield and it stops the heat flow or the thermal flow from one place to the other place, right? So it can be used as insulators. And the other one is the refractory materials. As I said in the introduction, these are mostly oxides, right? Metal oxide, non-metal oxides, right? And they can be either a single oxide or a multiple oxide or a mixed metal oxide, right? So mostly refractory materials are oxides, or it can be other thing. Mostly the non-metallic material will be used. Refractory materials are mostly formed using a single or a mixed metal oxide, and those mixed metal oxide can be from silicon, aluminum, magnesium, calcium and zirconium, right? So these are all some of the metal oxides which are used for ceramics, and there are materials which are not oxides but still can be used as ceramic materials. Those are non-oxide refractories, and those are something like carbides, nitrides, borides and graphite. So this is metal oxide, right? These are non-oxides, right? So ceramic materials we can classify like this also. We have ceramics which are made of metal oxides, and the other one is non-oxide, right? So this is a simple classification of this metal, this ceramics, right? Going to the next slide. So this is an explanation for refractory, but the term has been coined and it has been given by this ASTM, right? ASTM is nothing but it stands for American Standard for Testing and Materials, right? So ASTM stands for American Standard for Testing and Materials. They have coined the definition for refractories, and it goes like this. They define refractories as non-metallic material, which I told already, having the properties of chemical and physical properties that make them applicable for structures or as components of system that can be exposed to harsh conditions or environments which have a temperature above 538 degrees Celsius, right? So ASTM defines refractories as non-metallic materials having those chemical and physical properties that make them applicable for making structures and their components of system which can be exposed to harsh environmental conditions, for example above 538 degrees Celsius, right? So any material which can withstand an high temperature or harsh conditions, those are called as ceramics, okay? And these ceramic materials can withstand a temperature up to 1500 degrees Celsius, okay? So ceramics can withstand a temperature above 1500 degree Celsius. So this is the definition for ceramics as per ASTM standards, right? So where they are used. So now we saw engineering material and we saw the different classification of engineering material. In that we saw the refractory, and we know the how the name has been coined, and we saw the definition for refractories and the different materials which can be used as refractory, that also we saw. Now where and why these refractories are used, what is the purpose of using these material and where they are used, right? So these two things says where it is used, right? So whenever a production of anything, any material, so that will be accompanied by this refractory, right? So that's what written here. Refractories will be found early in the production process, and this production process can be anything, right? Metal or non-metal or any other glass, all these things will have this refractories with it, right? So it will be found early in the production process of any of the products. You take any material here, so it will have some refractory material with it. Okay, right. For example, one example I am taking here, a steel industry, right, where it makes where it uses iron and it mixes with different metals, it forms an alloy, right. So that industry requires very high temperature to melt the iron, cast iron, right, so that it goes into the liquid form, and they will add other metals to it and they will form the alloy, right. When they are forming this alloy, the usual temperature at which this cast iron melts will be above 1200 degrees Celsius, right. That means the temperature whatever used to melt the cast iron is very, very high, right, and they will be adding other materials to it, other metals to it, like carbon, nickel, aluminum, chromium, all these things will be used. So when they form an homogeneous mixture, it will be heated to a very high temperature around 1600 degrees Celsius, right. So when they are going to heat up to this high temperature, the furnace which is used or the oven which is used, it will be like this, you can take, right, the oven which has been used, this becomes malleable or it might undergo deformation at high temperatures. Once it deforms and if it changes its shape, there is a chance of the oven to break or it might lead to accident. To avoid this, people what they do is they will make these ovens with an safety material. They will pack a material inside the oven. So, and these materials are nothing but refractories, right. So once you have this refractories, the refractories has a property of not to these refractories as a property to have an insulation property. Because of this insulation property, the heat will not reach the outer surface of the furnace, and so that the furnace can be saved, right. Whatever temperature you are going to heat, since the refractory is there, it is going to act as an insulator and it stops the flow of heat from the core to the outside, thereby you can save the furnace, right. So this is where this refractory material has been used widely. Okay, not only in steel industry, you take any industry, copper industry, aluminum industry, right, in all these places ceramics have been used, right, and mostly in the form of refractories. Okay, and as I said, they act as an insulator where it stops the conduction of heat or temperature from one end to the other end, right, and this insulating property defined by different properties like porosity, the grain size and all these things. Those things we will see in the coming class, but insulator is one of the property which we have to look for under this refractory. Okay, and if there is no refractory in the material, that whatever I explained there here, without refractories the furnace could not withhold the molten steel which is at very high temperature. Since the metal or since the metal has been melted at a very high temperature, the slag will be melting the whole furnace. To avoid this, refractories has to be used. Okay, right. Right. So you can see this image here, whatever I said. So this is the outer wall, and this is the hot slag or the hot metal, right, and you can see two different layers of refractory. One is the inner one which stop the heat flow, and this is another refractory which acts as insulator, right. So here they have used two layers of refractories. There are different ovens or furnaces where they use multiple layers of the refractory materials so that the heat will not be conducted to the outer surface, right. So this is how it looks inside. So the hot slag will be there and the heat will be contained by the inner refractory material, and further it will be insulated by the second refractory material and thereby saving the outer shell, right. This is how a refractory works and this is how it looks in an refractory or in an furnace. Okay. So these are some more examples where and when these refractory materials can be used, right. I have highlighted something. So without refractories, none of the engineering materials can be produced, right. If refractory is not there, the engineering materials, whatever I said, so whatever structures you are going to make, right, whatever alloys, whatever composites, all those are not possible if this refractory is not there, because all those things employ very high temperature in order to make them, right. And the second one is it acts essential protectants for all heat intensive processes, right, as an insulator. This is nothing but the insulating property, right. It's nothing but the insulating property. So refractory products protect the very expensive factories, right. Whenever an industry has been started, the oven or the components whatever they are going to use are all very costly. So if these refractories are used, they can save those materials and they can save the very expensive ovens or furnaces, right. That is fourth. Third, and they more than that, so it is safety for the humans who work in these factories. So they are decisive safety features that workers and experts can work in the factory without being harmed, right. So if it is very hot, nobody can go near the furnace and do the specific operation. So if these refractories are there, it will stop the heat flow and people can go and work near the furnaces for different processes, right. So these are the things why refractory has to be used, and these are the some of the properties, right. So this is some of the images of refractories, right. So this is for metal and this for chimney, for anything, and this is our common household ovens where they used to make pizza or bake bread and all these things. These also uses refractory. You can see here the refractory material, right, and here also these are all the refractory material, and here this will be the refractory material used. You can see this one, and here this is the refractory material, right. So these are some of the refractory material or some of the examples where this refractory material has been used, right. So as I said, this is used in the furnace lining, right. I told this before but I am repeating it once again. So by using refractories as an insulator, the furnace efficiency will be increased, right. So the other reason to use this refractory is the efficiency of the furnace will be increased, right. So you can have a better efficiency when you are going to use refractory. That means you are going to use less energy and you are going to get more product out of it, right. So the efficiency will be increased if the refractory is used as an insulation, right. And this one as I said earlier, they are used in multi layers, right. So that as it has got different properties, I have mentioned it here. The inner one will be used for the dense hot face material which will be in contact with the hot slag, right, and the outer one will be of low density and it will act as an insulator, right. So the inner one will be very dense, the density will be more, right, and the outer one will be less density, right. So the density plays a major role here, because if the material is low dense, the air can penetrate into it. Once the air goes in, air is a best insulator, thereby the conduction of heat will be stopped, right. So less density materials are usually preferred as insulator, right, whereas the very high dense material will be used to stop the movement of slag into it, right? So they can be used as an insulator, and this can be used in layers. One layer, here we are using 2 layers. There will be multiple layers depending on the need and the efficiency, right? Right. So these refractories exist in different form, but actually more prominently it exists in 3 different forms, right? One will be in different shapes, right? So these refractories which exist in different shapes, we call it as preformed shapes, and we people used to see all these things in our day-to-day life. Bricks or tiles or any mosaic, those are all refractory materials where the shape is already fixed, right? So that is one form. The second one is it comes in the monolithics, that is nothing but the raw material. The raw material will be in the form of aggregates or fine powder or in the form of cement. So these will be purchased and they will be mixed with water and they will be designed or casted into different shape of the use, right? So the raw materials are aggregates, fine powders or cements. They will be mixed with water and you can make the shape whatever required for that application. And the third one is ceramic fibers, where the refractory material is kneaded into a thread kind of material and which can be used as an insulator, right? So this is ceramic fiber. I will show you some of the images. So this is preformed shapes, right? You can see the bricks and all. And the second one is monolithic. It looks like a cement where we will mix it with water and make the shape required. And the last one is fibers, right, where the refractory material is kneaded into thread kind of material and it will be used in different applications, mostly electrical applications, right? So these are the different forms available for the refractory. It can be in the form of shapes, preformed shapes, right, or it can be in the form of monolithics or in the form of ceramic fibers, right. So going into the next slide. So this slide shows you the salient features of a refractory, right? What are the important properties which we have to look for in a refractory is highlighted here, right? So as I said earlier, it is used as an thermal insulator. That is the biggest property, right? So which we have to look for. Refractories are insulators, right, between 2 different medium, right? And the second one is they resist lot of things, right? Ceramics resist lot of things. This also we saw in the earlier slide. So they resist the heat flow, they resist mechanical stresses, they resist corrosion, right, and they resist gas diffusion, and they resist mechanical aberration, right? So these are some of the things which we have to look for in a refractory, right? It will resist the flow of heat, right, where heat will cannot be conducted from one layer to the other layer. Mechanical stresses, so there is a chance of the outer surface to get deformed when high temperature is used, but when you are going to use refractories, these mechanical stresses will be reduced. And corrosion resistant, if you remember whatever I said earlier in the one of this slide, because of their very strong ionic bond, they resist chemical reactivity, thereby corrosion by chemicals or any oxides will be very, very low. And diffusion of gas, right, since the refractory material is going to have different porosity, the diffusion of gas or the liquid will be very, very less, and depending on the application, different types of materials are used for this gas diffusion. And mechanical aberration, right, so it is just the deformation of the surface, right, so that can be resisted if you are going to use this insulators. So these are the salient features of refractory materials. It acts as an insulator, it resists heat, it resists mechanical stress, it resists corrosion, it resists gas diffusion, and also it resists mechanical aberration, okay, right. Right. So similar to the earlier slide, These are some of the requirements which we have to look for when you choose a refractory material, right? So earlier slide described the salient features of a refractory, right? In this slide we are going to see what are the basic requirements we have to look for when we are choosing a refractory material. So the same properties gets repeated here but in a different aspect, right? So the main requirement is the material should have the ability to withstand very high temperature. It should have the ability to withstand very high temperature. It should not get deformed, it should not get melted, or it should not change its property at higher temperature. So that is one. And it should have the ability to withstand sudden changes in temperature, right? During the processes, during the metallurgical process, there are chances where the temperature fluctuates very sharply, right? That we call it as temperature shock, right? So when there is a sudden change in the temperature, there is a chance of the furnace to get broken, right? To avoid those, we have to choose a material which can withstand sudden changes in the temperature. Okay, right. The third one is ability to withstand the serving conditions, right? When you take a refractory material and if you applied any load over it at the outer, instead of being in the working condition, when it is not working, the property will change, right? When it is working, because of the external working load, the deformation or the condition will be different, whereas when it is not working, the condition will be different, right? So under an external working condition, what will be the deformation? If it can resist the deformation under working condition or under service condition, then that material can be used as a refractory, right? It should have the ability to withstand load at service condition, not only at normal outside condition. During the working condition or service condition also it should withstand, right? So it should be stable. Next one is ability to withstand chemical and abrasive action. It should be chemically inert so that corrosion will not happen and the surface will not go into scratching and all these things. So it should have the ability to withstand chemical and abrasive action. Next one is to maintain sufficient dimensional stability, right? It should have some sufficient dimensional stability. It should not get deformed at high temperature, simple as that, right? It should not change its shape during the working condition. It should have a sufficient dimensional stability and it should have the ability to conserve heat, right? That's also an important property, right? So the heat whatever given to do a work should not be dissipated outside the furnace, right? So the material should conserve the heat inside the oven so that that heat will be completely used for the work, right? If it is going to dissipate the heat, you will be supplying more amount of heat in order to get that material done, so you will be ending up in wastage of energy. So the refractory material should conserve the heat inside the furnace. So that is also an important property which has to be looked for when we are choosing a refractory. The last one is low coefficient of thermal expansion. So the thermal expansion should be very minimal. Okay, so usually when you heat a material, it will expand a little, but that expansion should be very less. So low coefficient of thermal expansion. So these are the properties which has to be looked for when you are choosing a refractory material. Okay, right? Right. So now comes the main thing. So that is classification of refractory materials. So classification of refractory materials has got different ways of classifying. Some I have highlighted here. So we can classify based on the chemical composition, right? What is the main components used to make that refractory? Based on that we can classify. You can classify based on the chemical properties. Okay, how good it is going to react with the other material. So that based on that we can choose, we can classify. Third one is method of manufacture, right? How it has been made. It has been made using a big machinery, or it has been used using a man-made thing, or what is the way of processing a material. Based on that also we can classify refractory. And the physical form, right? Physical form, we already saw the forms like monolithic, preformed objects, and the last one was fibers, right? So these are some of the physical forms where this refractory material exists, that also can be classified as one of the topic. And then according to the applications, right, it is used in various applications. It is used in different metallurgical processes, and all these things comes under this one. And based on the thermal conductivity, right, so the material whatever you are going to use, it has got a different conducting property, right? So depending on the usage or depending on the application, you can choose which type of electrical conductivity you require. We can classify based on that one also. And the last one is based on compactness. So this compactness is nothing but your density, right? Based on the density also we can classify this refractory materials, right? So refractory materials can be classified in different ways, right? So here I have listed few. So first one is we can classify based on the chemical composition. So we can classify based on the chemical properties. We can classify based on the way of manufacturing, and we can classify based on the physical form. We can classify based on where it is used, and we can classify based on the conductivity nature of that material, and we can also classify based on the density or compactness of that refractory material, right? We will see few of these things, how it has been classified, and then we will move on to the properties of refractories. Right, first one, this is a table showing the classification based on composition or the components, right? So the first one is classification based on the composition or the components. There is 7 and 2 is in the other next slide. We can classify silica refractory, where silicon is the raw material, okay, and magnesia refractory, which uses magnesia as the main component. Alumina refractory, and it's a mixture of alumina and silica, where 50% of alumina is used, other 50% will be silica. So that is alumina refractory. Fire clay, it is a mixture of alumina silicate, right, and the silica will be 78%, alumina will be 44%. You can compare it here. What is the percentage of alumina in alumina refractory and fire clay refractory? So in alumina refractory it will be around 50%, whereas in the case of here it will be around 44%, right? And dolomite, this is one refractory which is a mixed oxide, right? If you remember the first slide, so metal oxide can be either a single one or it can be mixture of metal oxide. So here it is a mixture of metal oxide, which is a mixture of magnesia and calcium oxide, which is dolomite. And zirconia, this is another refractory which uses zirconia oxide. And carbon, right, so it is graphite has been used as the refractory material, okay. So silica refractory, magnesia refractory, alumina refractory, fire clay, dolomite, zirconia, carbon, right? And there are other two which we will see here. Magnesia chrome refractory, okay, here we are using chromium oxide, right? Chromium oxide is also used as a refractory material. Magnesia chrome refractory. And the last one is silicon carbide refractory, right? If you remember, apart from oxides, other types of materials can also be used. So this is one where carbon has been used, silicon carbide refractories. So altogether 9 different types of materials, right? So like silica refractory, magnesia refractory, alumina refractory, fire clay, dolomite, zirconia, carbon, magnesia chromide refractory, silicon carbide refractory. So this is one way of classifying refractory based on the composition which it is made of, right. So next one is classified based on the chemical property. What is the nature of its reactivity with other components? So we classify this into three types. One is acid refractory, basic refractory, and neutral refractory, right. So the name itself will be very easy. Acid refractory means it will be used for acid components and it will resist for alkali easily. Alkali will be attacked, right. So it undergoes neutralization reaction and the refractory will have some damage, right. So basic, it is good for basic material but not good for acidic material attacked by acids, but it is stable for alkaline slag. And the neutral refractory is chemically inert for both acids and bases. So it can be used for both acidic refractory as well as basic refractory. And these are some of the examples of acidic refractory, basic refractory, and neutral refractory. Okay. So under acidic refractory, silica, which is mainly SiO2, zirconia and alumina silicate, Al2O3, SiO2. So these are the refractories which are mostly acidic in nature, and we can use these for acidic materials. It cannot be used for basic materials. And magnesite, dolomite, and magnesia chrome. So here you use calcium oxide, here it will be magnesium oxide, here it will be Cr2O3 chromide. So these are some of the mixed metal oxides which are used for basic refractories which resist acidic material if acidic components cannot be used in these materials, right. And neutral, carbon graphite, chromite, and alumina refractories, Al2O3. So this will be carbon graphite, and silicon carbide also one form, and alumina will be Al2O3, right. So these are some of the refractories which acts as a neutral refractory, right. The first classification was based on the composition. The second classification we see based on the chemical properties under this three types. One is acidic refractory, basic refractory, and the last one is neutral refractory, right. Okay. So based on the applications, right, as I said, we can classify into different types. So one type is based on the application where it is used. You can see the different industry where this ceramics has been used, right. Steel industry, copper industry, aluminum industry, cement industry, and glass industry, right. So these are the different places where this refractory has been used. In the case of steel industry, so we use as a lining, right, and it is used for different types of iron, right, blast iron, furnace iron with the different amounts of oxygen. All these things can be employed in steel industry. In copper industry, we use magnesia chrome brick, MgO, Cr2O3, right. So that one will be used. In aluminum industry, fire clay, right, mostly alumina silicate, alumina bricks, Al2O3 bricks, and phosphate bonded high alumina bricks. So this is used as a binder, right. So aluminum industry also uses these types of refractories. Cement industry uses dolomite, CaO plus MgO, magnesia chrome, MgO plus Cr2O3, and magnesia is nothing but MgO, right. And alumina spinel, it will be alumina will be Al2O3, and this is once again the same alumina silicate, right. So these are some of the examples which are used, some of the refractory examples which are used in cement industry. And the last one is glass industry, which uses zirconia refractory, ZrO2, right. So these are some of the examples or some of the places where refractory materials have been used: steel industry, copper industry, aluminum industry, cement industry, and glass industry, right. Okay. So based on usage, right, based on usage, you can use it in coke oven refractory, blast furnace refractory, steel making refractory, ladle refractory, Tundish refractory, calcining and reheating furnaces, right. So these are different subtopics under the application where you have seen earlier, right. So based on the usage also we can classify, right, and the other classifications which is of less relevant based on the method of manufacture, as I said, how it is made, whether it requires a big furnace or a big equipment or not, or it requires a small one or not. So based on the manufacture, whether it is a dry press process or a fused cast process or hand molding process or forming process. These are different ways by which these refractories can be made. So one is dry press process, fused cast process, hand molding process, how they make the bricks, and forming process, right. So this is also one type of classification for this refractory. The other classification is based on physical form, which I already said. In the refractory bricks, unshaped one as monolithics, and this fibers, so they can be used in different forms, and they can also be classified based on thermal conductivity, right. Conducting such as silicon carbide, zirconium carbide, and non-conducting materials are silica, alumina, and insulating refractories, right. We can classify based on conductivity. So these two are examples for conducting materials, silicon carbide and zirconium carbide, and non-conducting materials will be silica, alumina, and other insulating refractories. So this is how we classify the refractory materials under different subheadings. We will stop here and we will continue the characteristics, the properties of refractories in the next module. Thank you.